this week's cannabis news. And as always, there is lots of cannabis news, not the least of which is that we will be over at the Emerald Cup
live
on
and in
December.
person.
Unfortunately, we won't be in New York, but we will be covering a big cannabis event here in California at the Emerald Cup, December 12th. No, I'm sorry, 15th and 16th.
Yeah, no, the
12th is
federal
that week.
cannabis lawsuit
Right, is the 12th.
December 12th.
15th and 16th is the Emerald Cup. We'll make sure we won't miss it.
No.
But we will be covering that as well as going live, hopefully on Sunday. And one of the ways that we are going to do that is our goal. We now have a goal on our Patreon. Well, we have a Patreon, in case you didn't know. We just started it. The link is above on the YouTube channel. So many have asked. Many have asked how you can support our endeavor. And we hesitate to ask because, well, first of all, we can't monetize on YouTube.
Right.
Despite many of, and YouTube is dropping more cannabis channels again. So, so they say, lately. So, we're on the edge with YouTube, and Facebook, of course, is worse. And, so there's no way for us to monetize this, for our efforts. And we are, the story is we're putting more effort into it, and we love doing it, and we want to do it. But there are stories to tell. There are stories to tell, and that need to be more than the stories that are being told around the culture. The cultural stories are important. Using the plant, we think is important. But we need to talk about medicine, and we need to talk about, what's really going on underneath all this recreation and adult use tax and regulate schemes. So, we are going to, increase our efforts and bring you more information and more coverage in this space as it grows here in California and beyond. So we do have a goal for, our Patreon, and that is to go ahead and get that,
Sling Studio.
Sling Studio.
We need a Sling Studio to bring you cannabis stuff from all over the place.
Exactly. We're going to hopefully have it in time. Well, we are going to have it in time for the event. We're going to try to demo one, but eventually we would like to purchase one for the channel so that we can do it on a regular basis. So if you are so inclined and do want to and are able to support the channel and want to, click on the Patreon link above and you can contribute. And we're going to come up with some kind of a tiered structure for, it's like, oh, maybe we'll Dave and Chela take you down to the York Zone for vegan tacos.
Yeah, you can have regular tacos.
If you're in LA.
Vegan ones.
Yeah. So there you go. If you want to help us out, that'd be great. But if not, that's great too. Just you being here and sharing the show and telling people about the channel is more than enough, more than we can ask for. So welcome everybody to the show. Let's get into the headlines this week. No pressure on me today. We had literally 6 hours of education filtering in our brain, so I didn't write out a headline hash. But you can find out what I find to be important in the cannabis news of the week over at dc420la.com. And sign up for a Cannabis Chronicle, which I send out on Saturdays, close to 420, as I can. And this week, there were some interesting stories that I picked up across the cannabis media space. First of which, of course, Bernie Sanders is back in the game. We all know it. He's going to run. Pretty sure. My Bernie radar says he's going to run, for what it's worth. But he talks about marijuana prohibition in his new book. We know he's not a big fan of it, and he wants to change the laws. So nice to see Bernie picking up the Cannabis 2020 mantle, as many of the Democrats, as we report here, have done and are doing. So thanks, Bernie, for always supporting the end of prohibition. Meanwhile, Rolling Stone reporting New Jersey. We watched it live here on Reefer Revolution Live. We broadcast the hearings in New Jersey, which were quite interesting, the full hours of them. But it looks like they moved that by the end of our broadcast. They had moved it out of committee, and the long road, maybe not so long road, has begun in New Jersey that could be selling recreational weed in the medical dispensaries by January. So New Jersey could have its legal cannabis sooner than later. Another big story this week, the U.S. tax court tells the cannabis industry, you're still drug traffickers. In Leafly, the suit that was being watched, Harborside Health, many of you know Harborside Health, Looks like they might have to pay that tax bill after all. Of course, we're talking about IRS Rule 280E, which the tax court just said is still in effect, and you have to pay your tax. So we're hoping that changes. That 280E rule is maybe the first thing to go in this new Congress with the conservatives' help. So we'll see what happens there. That out of Leafly. Speaking of conservatives, it's happening, folks. It's happening. It's official. Well, it's not official, but hemp is in the Farm Bill, and it looks like the Farm Bill is moving forward. Looks like a deal is struck, and it's going to happen and be voted on and be signed by the end of the year. And looks like McConnell's Christmas present is going to be, for Kentucky, is going to be industrial hemp across all 50 states and big ramifications. We're going to talk about that in the Green Rush segment as we move forward into more political news. Pete Sessions going out, diehard prohibitionist, going out screaming, continues to block in the lame duck session marijuana amendments, going, to the last breath. They're going to block it. As even more banks, without those marijuana amendments going through, it does seem that more and more banks are picking up marijuana businesses. A new federal report from Marijuana Moment reports on. Thank you, Tom Angel, and great reporting over there. He also reports on the new Michigan bill that's going to help people with the convictions or overturning their convictions on marijuana offenses. So that's good news coming out of Michigan after legalization. But of course, the legislature can't leave things alone, and they're trying to stop the will of the people, as they're also doing in Utah. They're going to try to prohibit home grows in Michigan, to the outrage of the populace. And in Utah tomorrow, they're going to debate changes to their new law that passed, Prop 2. So that's, legislators will be legislators. They like to F with people. They tried it in Oklahoma. So we're going to keep an eye on that stuff. Meanwhile, in the grossest of science news, up north, is this government intrusion? Literally, the federal government in Canada is up people's butt. They are testing your poop in Canada to find out how much cannabis you use. I don't even want to know the process, but here are the results. Montreal has the highest rate of consumption with roughly 1,922 grams a week. Toronto is number 2 with 1,257 grams a week, followed by Vancouver and a pitiful 721 grams a week of trace THC in your excrement. Vancouver. What's up, BC? Apparently not THC. Wow. They don't trust reporting, voluntary reporting.
Yeah.
So they are testing to find out how much cannabis is being consumed in Canada. And this test will continue throughout 2019. And that's the headline hash from DC 420 LA. Besides one thing, let me just pick this up, because I did ask for folks to send us articles, and this did one get sent to us by Holy Cannabis Oil sent this over. Pretty sure, if I don't recall, because this joint is taking effect. From Ganjapreneur, ancient virus created CBD and THC, genome map reveals. And that is in Science Daily. Science News Daily. Science Daily? Science Daily. How ancient viruses got cannabis high. So apparently, the THC and CBD are viruses, or created by viruses, and a beneficial one.
From the hemp plant.
From the hemp plant. Interesting.
The virus mutated something in the hemp plant and made CBD and THC happen the way it does. So
we'll get into that in our science section.
Oh, okay.
If you want to talk, because Chela has a toke from this week's what's it called? Cannabis Chronicle.
The Cannabis
at
Chronicle.
DC420LA.com.
That I enjoyed this morning.
Were you in a bath?
I was not in a bath.
No. We're going to try to get a bath up in at the Emerald Cup.
That'd be nice to get
a
a bath.
jacuzzi.
I'd like a jacuzzi.
Anybody know a place up there we could crash
That'd
near
be
Sonoma?
Nice. That'd be nice. Anyway, There's lots of places.
What's your
but
toke?
Anyway, so my toke, the Salon article, would you mind bringing that up?
Absolutely.
So the Salon article addresses, big marijuana, it's big marijuana versus craft weed. Will cannabis conglomerates ruin small family farms? So we've been going to a lot of panels and events and discussions and talking with a lot of farmers and hearing what a lot of farmers have to say about this very thing, in addition to the article from Salon. So in the article, it basically summarizes the idea of the big marijuana prophecy where, of course, Monsanto's going to take over Philip Morris, or you name the big culprit, which I think is entirely possible. Like McDonald's. But farmers markets still exist, and there's lots of people who prefer organic food. So I think that's the direction that the story pretty much talks about. But as an adjunct to that, synthesizing all the different things, it's important as consumers who are buying from dispensaries, even sometimes, that you talk about local craft-grown, small batch, family farms, generation farmers. Make sure you talk about that stuff when you go into dispensaries. It's really important as consumers to do that, because then the dispensary will be more inclined to support their local farmers and their generation and their craft farmers that brought us this industry all in all. As I'm sure all of you are in your localities, the local generation farmers of your own region. So I love that Salon is talking about these things. I'm really glad that it's becoming part of the conversation.
Well, we have a governor now in California.
Yes, the governor-elect.
That seems to be friendly to craft cannabis and understands the struggle, to keep it alive, as you've reported. And he's also, we know that based on what the one of the panels that I was listening to today had I believe was the author, or at least he was instrumental in moving the compassionate care bill through California legislation that passed and got vetoed by Jerry Brown. They're going to bring that back up again for Gavin Newsom and he'll sign that. But he has expressed support for the craft cannabis, and there are 50,000 growers in California and 1,700 licenses issued. That's probably changed, but that's pretty much the ratio. Not a big, they're not churning out the licenses, and many people aren't looking for licenses. There are several growers in California and distributors that are trying to hooey up and form co-ops or keep smaller growers together. But this has been an issue even before the advent of tax and regulate and this whole structure. It's the small growers always needed support, and now it just has to be organized and official and part of the conversation. Because the bulldozer's happening, corporate cannabis is here. The rich white politicians have figured out how to make money on both ends, making cash and, out of, in giant cannabis corporations in a quasi-legal, manner, and also still locking up more people, across the country, according to FBI statistics for marijuana. So they're making money on the Prohibition 2.0 as well as corporate cannabis. So it's happening. The Farm Bill, it's happening. So we have to be vigilant and keep our politicians like Gavin Newsom in California, the 5th largest economy in the world, and the largest cannabis economy outside of Canada, if not bigger than Canada. Probably it is bigger than Canada. We have to stay on top of it. So good toke, Chela. I agree with you completely and it is good that Salon picked it up.
Yeah.
So Small Tubes. Hey, I've been seeing you all over the chat. Welcome, everybody. Yes, Mr. Sparks a lot says, I don't think Big Canna will hurt niche growers, just like beer companies. There are general ones and your craft beers as well.
Sure.
You know, of course, a lot of your craft beers get bought up by your corporate. Yes.
Big Canna, the Big Canna myth, prophecy, assumes that cannabis is a commodity. And as Hezekiah Allen was saying and reminded us, cannabis is not a commodity. It's not interchangeable. And we were hearing on some of the other panels this morning, you know, it's even with as controlled an environment as possible, it's still really hard to get the exact same properties from batch to batch to batch. So to assume that Big Canna could take over assumes that cannabis is a commodity, and cannabis is not a commodity.
Well, they're trying, as you'll hear in one of these, one of our first, in our Green Rush report, Monsanto has its first genetically modified cannabis plant.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, the exact word, but they're basically trying to grow strains with consistency. They're basically looking for consistent properties in, you know, the strains that they grow, and that's all being done through, you know, plant material and, you know, in the lab essentially, and biobiology. You know, I don't know, growers know more than I, but am I wrong or am I right? There's a lot of, we heard that basically there's a, you know, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it so you get the same consistency all the time in a plant, which is important. I mean, how you do that, but it's important in the pharmaceutical world.
It sounds like it's not really possible.
You know, this is the idea, I guess, behind isolates and taking it out of the plant material out of the plant and then putting it back together in a way that you can control.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, Monsanto OG. Ooh, yeah. Franken Cannabis. Yeah, I kind of I didn't actually realize that in this, you know, In Touch Cannabis show. I didn't realize that Monsanto had already done that. It was like, what? Here it comes. So, but you know, it's the science of cannabis is more than just looking in your poop to see how much you smoke.
I love that though. You have no expectation of privacy when you flush your poop down the pooper.
It's true. They can go through your trash. They can go through your toilet. A daily dope. Yeah. I'm gonna play a little bit of the Weed Man later. He had probably the best soundbite out of that New Jersey hearing, and it reminded me of you, DD. But Daily Dope doing some good coverage this week about Michigan. A couple of great videos. So welcome to the show. Subscribe to his channel. Make sure. Welcome everybody. Welcome to Reefer Revolution Live. That was the headlines and Chella's Toke as we move into our first block, shall we?